Today we're going to tackle a subject that can be somewhat confusing at first, but after you see this video, hopefully it'll make a lot more sense. How to set up a mix minus. Come on. All right, here we go. We're going to do a mix minus setup using my mixer here. This is a discontinued mixer, but the point is you can do this with pretty much any mixer. The key is that you have these auxiliary sends here. That's going to be the key to doing a mix minus. And because oftentimes the hardest part of doing a mix minus is understanding a mix minus, let me explain it once again a little bit more. A mix minus is just a mix of all the audio going into the mixer. Audio from your microphone, audio from the computer going into the mixer, and any other audio you might have, like an external device. Maybe you have an iPhone plugged into one of your channels the way we're going to do it, so that you can bring in additional sounds or even another caller. So it's everything you put inside of the mixer. It all gets mixed into one signal, and then you output that to some other source. In our case, for a mix minus, we're going to be outputting it back to the computer so that the person on Skype can hear everything going on inside the mixer, minus their own voice, which is going to be coming in on channel 7 and 8 for us today. So let's get to it. Let's hook up everything in the mix minus setup. All right, first things first, we're going to plug in our microphone. Here I'm using a Heil PR40, but it doesn't matter what kind of microphone you use. You can use any microphone that you have. I also use the ATR 2100, the Heil being the higher end of a microphone for podcasting, and the ATR, the Audio-Technica 2100, being the lower end. However, in my opinion, you don't sacrifice noticeable quality with the ATR 2100. So you can get in cheap or you can get in expensive. It doesn't matter, especially for what we're doing here. So it's real simple. We have an XLR microphone. We connect that into, in this case, we're going to go into channel 1. Okay, and that's really it. My microphone is plugged into channel 1. My main mix knob is all the way down. My channel for my microphone and all my channels are turned all the way down. My gain knobs are turned all the way down. Nope, there's one. Turned them all the way down. Because let's just start from scratch, okay? And then we will get them all turned up. The EQs here, these are just personal preference. You can leave these all centered at the top if you want. Doesn't matter. And then, of course, of most importance to us, these auxiliary channels. We're going to be using auxiliary B. We have A and B. You can use either one. In this case, we're going to use auxiliary B for our mix minus. Okay, so let's plug in our computer into the mixer, and the computer is going to have Skype. The Skype caller is going to be coming in from the computer to the mixer, and then the mixer is going to be going back out to Skype minus the Skype caller. So we'll take our basic stereo Y cable and we'll attach the 3.5 millimeter side into the output of our computer, and we'll bring it in, as I said, we'll bring the computer into line 7/8. All right, so now the computer will be coming in on this channel here, 7/8, and we'll adjust the volumes as we go. Okay, and now we need to get the audio out of the mixer and get it back into the computer. And in this case, we're going to do that with a 3.5 millimeter stereo cable adapted with a 1/4 inch adapter. And we're going to go out, as I mentioned, out of the auxiliary B. Okay, now we have an output from our mixer, and we plug the 1/8 inch cable into our input on our computer. Now, sometimes this might be a microphone input that has the stereo 1/8 inch jack. If you don't have one, you can simply adapt it with the Griffin iMic adapter, which takes the analog 1/8 inch jack and makes it into a USB input. Okay, and our final input into the mixer is the iPhone. And I'm using a simple app on my iPhone called Boss Jock, which allows me to put in any sounds that I want into these buttons here, and I simply press the button and it'll play the sound or music into the mixer. So we're going to connect that with a simple, again, another stereo cable, and then I'm just going to go into line 5/6 here. And now on line 5/6 we have, in this case, the iPhone. You can plug in any audio device and it's going to be playing our sound effects. Okay, and finally, let's get our knobs all dialed in so we can have the correct audio going to the correct places. So on our microphone channel here, I'm going to start off by just putting my gain. Now your settings will be different. So here I'm just going to put my gain straight up about 12 o'clock. And I'm going to do the same on the channel fader. I'm going to turn the main mix up here just so I can get some levels. As you can see, there's some levels into the mixer. That tells me the microphone is on and is being heard by the mixer. And then we have our, in this case, iPhone plugged in channel 5.6. I would just turn that up so that I get levels into the mixer as well. Ideally, you would probably monitor this through some headphones. Now let's get some levels from our Skype caller here on channel 7 and 8. I'm going to go ahead and use Skype's free test call service. And when the voice comes on, you'll start seeing levels. There we go. And we can adjust our fader as necessary to get the appropriate levels. And now we know we have audio coming in from Skype, our soundboard, and the microphone on channel 1. So all the audio is now coming into our mixer. Let's take the audio out of the mixer and bring it back into Skype via our auxiliary send. We saw that the mixer is getting all the audio inside of it. Now the important part is to take it out to Skype minus the Skype channel so that the Skype caller doesn't hear themselves, creating a feedback loop. So this is very easy. For every channel you have audio coming into, we need to use our appropriate auxiliary send. In this case, we're using B, the post fader, to send audio either back to Skype or not back to Skype. So we'll start off with our own channel. We want Skype to hear our microphones. So now as we turn up the aux B post fader on our microphone channel, Skype will now hear our microphone. We'll go over to our sound effects. We'll do the same thing. Skype will hear our sound effects because we've turned up the post fader auxiliary B on the mixer. Now we come over to the Skype channel. This is where our caller or interviewee is coming in. And of course we don't want them to hear themselves. So it's already off. We leave it at off. And now the person on Skype does not hear their own audio because this post fader auxiliary B has to be turned up in order for the Skype caller to hear it. So now they hear the microphone, the sound effects, and they don't hear themselves. And this same process applies for whatever audio you have into your mixer. Pick the things you want the Skype caller to hear and turn up the fader for the auxiliary channel. And for the things you don't want the Skype caller to hear, turn off their post fader. So Skype's volume is going to be controlled by these auxiliary sends. So now how are we going to record this whole thing? Today we're going to record everything to an audio recorder. I'm just going to use a stereo RCA to 3.5 millimeter cable, and you can adapt that with 1/4-inch adapters to use the main mix out, or in this case we're just going to use the native RCA output, which is this 2-track out from my mixer. Most mixers have this. All right, we'll take our audio recorder. The brand really doesn't matter. We'll plug in our cable to the line in, and we're ready to arm the recorder and start recording our audio. All right, that's our mix minus setup. We have all the inputs coming into our mixer, and we have the output going back to our computer without the person on the computer hearing their own voice back. A mix of all the audio minus the caller's voice. All right, that's how you set up a mix minus. Hopefully that explains it for you. But if not, if you still have questions, please put those in the comments. And you can always get a hold of me over at thepodcastersstudio.com, or you can send me a tweet via podcast helper. All right, I will see you next time. Now I did mention pre and post. In this case, we're using auxiliary B, which is the post fader. And that simply means that both the channel fader and the auxiliary fader have to be turned up for the Skype caller to hear it. So if I turned up their auxiliary B post fader, but had the channel fader down like that, they would still not be getting audio. And this is an easy way to control what Skype hears by using the main faders. If you use the pre-fader to send their audio, it would not matter what you did on this main fader. They would always get the audio. And this is a subjective choice. It just depends on how you want to work. Do you want your main fader to control the Skype audio or not?